made it for so long, and finally today we will enter into chapter 15 also, Krishna willing. So before we go there, let us all chant mangala charan together. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripe Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So today's session we do not have Gita Rewind. We will straight away enter into today's learning. So we were in chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. We have been discussing in great length about goodness, passion and ignorance. So last session when we were discussing, we found that how Sato, Rajo or Tamo Gun or goodness, passion, ignorance, actually all these three are binding. So though there is a competition, and though we also discussed that it is ideal to come at least on the platform of Sato Gun or goodness, because that helps us in acquiring spiritual knowledge and it opens a gateway to the transcendental world. But then goodness, if we just remain in goodness also, that is also binding. So Sato, Rajo and Tamo Gun causes us repeated birth and death. So because we are incurring karma in all these three, and that is why we keep coming back again and again. So when we discussed about goodness, passion, ignorance, any intelligent person would get this question. So, okay, all these three are binding. So how do I get out of it? Is there a way out? So yes, that is exactly what I think Krishna has heard our prayers or questions. And that's why he is going to answer in this section, which we are presenting today, Transcending the Modes. So this spans from verse number 19 to verse number 27. Nayam gunebhya kartaram yada drishtanupashyati gunebhyascha param vetti madbhavam sodhigacchati.
When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. So just in this one verse, 19th verse, Krishna explains that how can actually one gain freedom from the three modes? Very, very simply. What he says, three things that we need to understand. That this knowledge can award liberation. So these are the three things. If we have understood this clearly, we will very easily gain liberation. So what is one? That this body is given to us by the modes of material nature. The actions that I perform with respect to this body are guided by the modes of nature. The goals which I may have in material conception are also ascertained by the modes of nature. A sattvic person will have sattvic body, his actions would be guided by sattva gun, and even his goals would be sattvic, and so accordingly would be for person who's in rajogun and tamogun. So this knowledge, that body, action and goal are all guided and ascertained by the modes, and this person also understands that he is separate from these modes. He is spirit particle, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and he also understands that the Supreme Lord is beyond the modes. He is the master of the modes. So if one has this knowledge, then Krishna says one attains a nature like his, or one attains spiritual liberation.
So basically, as we can see, three aspects. One about the whole body and how the body functions and governed by modes of nature. Second, about how soul is different from the body and from the modes. And third, how Supreme Lord is the master of these modes and he is also beyond the modes. So just three things we have to remember always in order to attain liberation. Gunanetan atitya trin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkhair vimukto mritam ashnute. When the embodied being is able to transcend the three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from janma mrityu jara dukkhair. He can become free from birth, death, old age and their distress, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So now this is again a very interesting verse. So in the previous verse, Krishna was talking about what all knowledge is required for one to actually attain liberation. And now here the Supreme Lord is highlighting that if we get that knowledge, then even in this body, he says, Dehi Deha Samudbhavan. So even in this body, when I am in this body, still I can taste the nectar. And what is that nectar? When we become free from birth, death, old age, and whatever distress it causes. So if I am free from that thing, so though I would be staying in this body, so we can see the advanced devotees, those wonderful devotees. So though externally it may appear that their body is growing old, that they are catching some disease, that they are falling sick, and after some time we see that they also actually die. But then they are free from their distress. So janma mrityu jara dukkhair. So that dukkhair or the dukh what arises because of that, what happens to them? Vimukto amritam ashnuti. Vimukt ho jate hain. They are like not connected with that and they taste the nectar even in this body. So here is the life lesson that devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement, even while being in this body.
So this is the beauty and greatness of devotees of the Lord. That even though they go through this cycle of birth, old age and death, they do not suffer like ordinary living entities do.
Arjuna vacha kairlingai stringunanetan atito bhavati prabho kim acharah katham chaitams tringunanati vartate.
Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior and how does he transcend the modes of nature? So now Arjuna is asking questions. What is a symptom of such a person who's transcendental to these three modes? One who is gunatit, who is beyond these three modes. What are his symptoms? what is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature. So if you notice that Arjuna had actually asked a similar question in the second chapter when we were talking about Sthita Pragya. So he was asking about the symptoms, he was asking about what is his behavior. Actually here Arjuna is asking an additional question, that how does he do that? How does he transcend the modes of nature? So Krishna has already indicated, we saw in the previous words, one who has knowledge that everything is in this world is executed by the modes, soul is away, separate from it, and the super soul is the master of these modes and different from the modes. So this knowledge is there, and still Arjuna is asking, what is the process? Please tell me the method by which one can transcend these modes, how one can become gunatit. So these are the three questions for all of you. Symptoms of one who has transcended the modes, what is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes.
So like we saw, Prabhu was talking about the second chapter, Sthit Pragya. So here also, when Arjuna is asking about the symptoms of one who has transcended the modes, that is his internal thing. And what is his behavior, which means that when he come in contact with the outside world, how he is reacting. So Arjuna is asking that internally, which others may not be able to notice, but what goes on within him. And then externally with others, what is his behavior? So these are the very, very similar questions what he asks there in the second chapter itself.
And the beautiful part is that it is not just that one who talks about this, but actually one who lives this is the one who has actually transcended the modes.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment and delusion. So these three words, I hope it sounds familiar, because last session for almost 3 or 4 verses Krishna has mentioned these points. So illumination he was using whenever he was referring to quality in sattva, attachment in passion, and delusion in ignorance. So here he is telling, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active.
Who is situated in the self, regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal towards the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. So in these verses, we see that Krishna gives the symptoms, and Krishna also gives the behavioral aspect of such a person. So let's look at them a little more detail. So here we see that what are the symptoms? That this person is free from envy and hankering. He does not have any kind of a trishna, or the intense desire to obtain things that he doesn't have, and he does not envy anyone who has those things. So he is completely free from that. And interestingly, as we saw in this verse, illumination refers to, it refers to the knowledge. One who's in mode of goodness, knowledge arises. So whether there is an appearance of knowledge or its disappearance, whether there is attachment or there is no attachment, whether there is the presence of delusion, which means that this person, whether by mistake he commits some mistake, he is in some falsity, or he is in some confusion. So this person is not bewildered by that. He is not disturbed by that. He understands that all of this is just happening because of the modes. And therefore, he neither hates him or neither he desires them. So these are the three effects of the modes. And this gunatit person, one who is beyond the modes, he is, just observes them, but he does not really get entangled with these results of the modes.
The next he describes about the symptom when he says that this person is equipoised, transcendental and detached knowing that the modes alone are active. So this is how he is equipoised. How to maintain a balance or equilibrium, like many of you have this problem that, okay, if the things are favorable and nice and everything is good, then it is okay to be Krishna conscious. But what about those situations when there is some provocation? What about, for example, if I'm working and I find that I'm being exploited, like my boss or my colleague, they are exploiting me. What do I do? Or what if somebody shouts at me? Or what if my in-laws treats me badly? So such situation, so how can I be equipoised in that situation? How I do not get disturbed in that situation when I know that the modes alone are active? When I know that I am a soul and the other person is also a soul, and the soul has nothing to do with it, it depends on which mode is governing me and which mode or what modes are governing the other person. So when I understand that, then I'm always situated in a equipoised situation. Otherwise, it is not possible. So that is why such a person attains liberation, because he knows, he can clearly see, and hence he does not entangle in such either an appreciation or an argument. In both the situation, he is sama, he is equally situated. Then how is his behavior? So he is steady in all circumstances, and Krishna talks about various circumstances. So somebody blames him or someone praises him. Someone honors him or someone dishonors him. There is happiness or there is distress. Life gives him things which are desirable, and at times things or situation which he did not want. But in all these circumstances, he is steady. That is his behavior, that is his reaction to the external world. Now, from where does this steadiness comes? So this steadiness is coming from the understanding, I am a spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, servant of Krishna. And when I understand that, and when I see I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not these modes, I'm different from all of them, and whatever is coming to me is actually the reaction for what I have already done. So whatever, either blame is coming, and not only blame, even if somebody is praising me, that is also not because I'm doing something now, but it is a reaction for what has already happened. So then I understand that, and then I am steady in all circumstances.
And again, continuing, what is his behavior externally? Because that what we discussed in the previous slide was what is happening internally. When he receives the blame or when he receives the praise, is he thinking internally? So he is sama at that time. And then now he deals equally, whether it is earth or stone or even gold. So any object, whether it is valuable or invaluable or not valuable, then he still deals with them equally. He deals equally with friends and with enemies. So this is one of these are the qualities. This is his behavior, external behavior. So he knows that if some object like earth, stone or gold, if something he can engage in Krishna service, he uses. And if there is some gold which he cannot engage in Krishna service, then he has no connection with it. Right? So whatever is favorable for his duty towards Krishna conscious, he accepts, and then he rejects. And same thing is with this relationship. So in our relationship, we have the world divided into two parts. Those whom I like, who are my friends, and those whom I dislike, may not be enemies, but then I dislike. So this is how we divide our world. But a gunatit person, one who's beyond the modes, he can take help from anyone if it can help him advance the cause of Krishna consciousness. So he can take anyone who helps him Krishna conscious as a dear friend, and he does not hate any so-called enemy. So this is the greatness of this person, and he is equally disposed, sees everything on an equal level with him. So these are the wonderful qualities of this person. This is his external behavior.
Mam cha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahma. So now the question may arise that what is it, what Krishna is giving in this verse? So Krishna is answering Arjuna's third question. And third question was, how do I surpass the modes? How do I transcend the modes? So Krishna is again bringing the point of devotional service. Bhakti yogena sevate. Krishna is directly telling that one who engages in devotional service, and not only at certain times, but when? Unfailing in all circumstances. So as we saw that he's receiving pleasurable things or unpleasurable things, desirable things or undesirable things, praise or criticism, in all circumstances, the person, he does not forget to perform the devotional service. So such a person at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahma. So this is what Krishna is talking about, avyabhicharena bhakti yogena. So this is how if we perform bhakti yoga and then we attain perfection. And I hope that all of you have already checked our course on bhakti yoga. If not, then the whole course is there on our StudyGita website, and we really want, because it's a specially curated course talking only about bhakti yoga and the devotees who have perfected their lives by performing bhakti yoga. So there are a lot of pastimes, also a very relishable course. So if you have not attended, kindly do that so that we understand what Krishna means when he is saying that engages in full devotional service. So when we talk about bhakti, Srila Prabhupada would say that bhakti is a verb. It talks about action. So bhakti is not just ki, okay, I love Krishna, I like Krishna, I am fond of Krishna. Bhakti means action. So loving means action again. So how am I loving Krishna? How am I expressing my love for Krishna? Now Krishna has given the method how to do that. So there is Shravan, Kirtan. So there are 9 processes of devotional service that we have to perform, not that something what I want to do. And that devotional service, that type of devotional service has to be performed in all circumstances of life.
And that also brings us to another question. Maybe some of you have this question. When Krishna already told in one of the previous verses that by having this knowledge, one can transcend and one can gain liberation, then interestingly, Arjuna still asks this question. How? What is the method? And Krishna answers that question also. He doesn't say that I already told you how to do that. So this means that the knowledge alone one cannot practice. It requires bhakti yogena. So Krishna is emphasizing here that jnana is not sufficient. It is very difficult and one cannot really actually really perfect it, right? Especially in the present age. So bhakti yoga is necessary. And also we look at the first line. Krishna says mam cha. He's saying bhakti to me. And cha, Acharyas explained that cha refers to eva here or only. Me only. So one who serves me only in the form as Shyam Sundar, as Krishna, as the Supreme Lord, as the son of Vasudev, as the young lovable boy, son of Mother Yashoda. Through the process of Bhakti Yoga, he alone is qualified to reach Brahman, or he is alone qualified to cross beyond the gunas. And then as Sugiti was explaining that how Krishna says samatityaitan, avyabhicharena, mam chayo abhicharena, that this bhakti is without any deviation. There is no mixture of any karma yoga or any jnana yoga. This is pure devotional service that Krishna is talking about. And yes, this bhakti yoga is to be practiced in all situations, whether living or dying, because the moment of death and as we approach, it is a very, very difficult situation. And we have read so much about Srila Prabhupada, we have heard about so much about him, we have seen him and heard him, his classes, and now we will see a little glimpse into his departure from this material world, because both of us felt that this is so appropriate for this verse, 26th verse, that how one should practice, engage in devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, irrespective of what situation we are in. So next 5 minutes, we want you to be really focused on what's happening on your screen.
His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, was a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, and therefore his entire life, including his passing from this mortal world, was a perfect example of Krishna consciousness. This video depicts his final pastimes. During his last months in Vrindavan, His Divine Grace continued to instruct his disciples, discuss the affairs of ISKCON, and translate Srimad Bhagavatam. On his request, his disciples maintained 24-hour kirtan and readings from the scriptures. Srila Prabhupada invited all his disciples to be with him as he passed the test we all must face. However, due to circumstances often beyond their control, most of his disciples were not present. Now, those who choose to can experience those precious moments. Although these scenes can be emotionally wrenching, they do depict a rare transcendental event, the last chapter in Srila Prabhupada's glorious life. The final lesson.
And he says, karma, karma hetu.
Karma hetu, if we engage in devotional service, we get a different nature. And if we engage in the business of sense gratification, we get altitude different.
And then that karma is tad dehopalabdhi hetu.
Yeah. And according to the association of different nature, we get a body. Karanam gunasammasya satasat janmayoni. Therefore, we should always seek good association, devotee association. Then on life will be success.
And then last it says the gunas, satvadayo, jnana vikshepa moha hetavaha.
If we live with good association, then we cultivate knowledge. That means association. And man is known by his company. So, if we have the chance of association with devotees, then our character, nature become different.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this, what we saw just now, performing devotional service unfailing under any circumstances. A very striking example of that, where Srila Prabhupada, what we say, a deathbed, like he would leave his body at any time, and yet he is in complete consciousness of Krishna. He's completely Krishna conscious, and he is revealing those divine purports which we study, and even at that stage, his intelligence, his memory, everything is so clear, crystal clear. Though the body looks so dilapidated, it is shrunk, and yet his consciousness is completely on Krishna. So this is what we were reading in today's verse number 26, when Krishna is explaining the method of transcending the modes. How Srila Prabhupada actually, he began his conversation when he was talking about how we acquire this body because of the interaction with material nature. So something similar what we are reading currently, Srila Prabhupada was giving his instructions, and he was just lying there, and if you would have noticed, there was this machine to record whatever Srila Prabhupada was speaking. The dictaphone was there for recording. And these are those wonderful Prabhupada's spiritual ecstasies which he was speaking in that point of time. So this, my dear devotees, this is what Krishna is telling, that engages in devotional service of Krishna only, unfailing in any circumstance. Brahmano hi pratisthaham amritasya vayasya cha Shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya kantikasya cha. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahma, which is immortal, imperishable and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So we saw in the previous verse, Krishna was telling that in this way the person attains Brahma. He was talking about Brahma realization. So we may start thinking, we may start thinking that when a person is performing devotional service and then he is attaining Brahma, so what is this Brahma? So Krishna is explaining here that I am the basis of impersonal Brahma, which is immortal, imperishable and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness.
So this verse is also very important for those people who had a background of a belief system where they wanted to merge with Brahma Jyoti. And many people, because we do not have clarity in philosophy, so we think Brahma Jyoti is separate and Krishna's personal form is less important and Brahma Jyoti is more important. But here Krishna is saying, Brahmano hi pratisthaham. He is saying that this Brahma Jyoti, I am the basis. I am the basis of this Brahma Jyoti. Pratishtaham means shelter on which something stands firmly. Like for example, we have this sun. Now sun is, we can one way say, is the condensed light. It is the source of light. From that globe that light is coming. So it is the condensed light and it is the basis, or it is the shelter, or it is the pratishtha from where the sun rays are coming. It is the sun rays are based on sun. Because of the sun we can get. So that is what Krishna is explaining here. And he's saying this Amrita, one will attain the Amrita or ultimate happiness. Now this happiness is not the happiness of reaching some Swarga planet, some heavenly planets. No. Because this Amrita is immortal, imperishable and eternal. So this qualities apply to Brahm, and it also applies to the happiness that one gains by reaching Brahma. So which means that this happiness which one attains by reaching this platform is indestructible. So Krishna is the source of Brahman. When one attains the level of Brahman, which means freedom from the contaminations of the mode of nature, something which is beyond this material world, he becomes qualified to perform bhakti. So therefore we can, from this, we can also understand that how actually devotees are higher situated than a Brahmavadi, or one who is trying and aspiring to achieve the Brahma Jyoti of the Lord, trying to merge in the Brahma Jyoti of the Lord. Actually devotees start from that platform. Why? Because a devotee, when he chants the holy names, when he Krishnizes his consciousness, he Krishnizes his existence, his life, then he actually transcends the modes. So that is not different from being at the Brahman level. In fact, Krishna was talking about this in one of the previous verses, where he says that a devotee who has transcended the modes, even in this life, he is happy. So that's why Sugiti was also explaining that devotees go through. It is not that once we become Krishna's devotee, there is no old age. When we become Krishna's devotee, there is no death or there is no rebirth. It may happen because if we are not perfected, but we do not suffer the way ordinary living entities do. So that is bhakti actually begins when we reach the platform of Brahman, beyond the modes of material nature.
And with this, we complete chapter 14 successfully. So we request all of you after this session, go to the website, the quiz has been uploaded. So we request you to take the quiz for chapter 14 and complete chapter 14. And here we begin chapter 15. So as we can see, chapter 15 is a small and important chapter, and there are total 20 verses. So first section is from verse number 1 to 6, which talks about reflection and substance. So we will enter into chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, section 1. And after actually how the previous chapter ended. So the previous chapter, Krishna explained in detail about the modes of material nature. And then when Arjuna asked that how to transcend, and then Krishna gave the explanation of transcending the symptom, the behavior of the person, and finally he brought Arjuna to the point of devotional service unfailing under any circumstances. So there that chapter ends. Now chapter 15 actually describes the purpose of Vedas or Vedic study. So why do we understand Vedas? So this question may arise, okay, bhakti is there, but what about the Vedas? So about the Vedas, now Krishna is going to answer in this particular chapter. And we will understand that how the purpose of studying Veda is to know Krishna.
And even before Krishna will start speaking about Vedas, he will explain about this material world. Because the three modes of nature, they manifest this material world. So what about this material world? Where does it come from? So all these questions are there in Arjuna's mind. He has not expressed them. But Krishna will begin to answer the questions which Arjuna might have.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakham Ashvatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Saveda Ved. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. So now Krishna is beginning from something very, very fancy, where we have to really put our imagination in picture and try to visualize such a tree. It's a metaphor. He is going to explain this at great length. So here he is beginning.
Yes. So he's saying that this material world, because this question about what is the origin of this material world, what is the nature of this material world? So Krishna begins to explain that this material world is like an imperishable banyan tree. And then it is not like an ordinary tree. It is a very odd tree. Why? Because the roots are up and the branches are down. So usually we do not see such trees. We see that the roots are down and the branches are up, leaves, everything is like this. That's a regular vision of the tree. But here it is an upside down tree. So Krishna is comparing that analogy or that metaphor Krishna is given for this material world. So something like this. So Krishna is referring to this material world is like an upside down banyan tree. So where do we find such a banyan tree? We find it on the bank of a lake. So the tree is there, but then if you look at the water, then there is that reflection of the tree where the roots are up and the trees and the branches are down. So like the tree's reflection on water, similarly, we have spiritual world's reflection on desire. Spiritual world, all devotees are just completely absorbed and engaged in Krishna's service. But if someone has a desire to enjoy separately from the Lord, material desire, then their manifestation of, then there is manifestation of this material world. So spiritual world is like the original tree, and material world is like the reflection of that material, of that spiritual world. So one who knows this tree, Krishna says, is the knower of the Vedas. So let's look at this tree a little carefully. Whom do we see on the top? Of course, we see Shri Radha Krishna, that's the spiritual world, and it gets reflected in desire, the water of desire. And who's on the top there? So on the top, we see Satyaloka, or four-headed Brahma, the Brahmaji of our universe. He is the root of the material world. And then there are Devatas, then there are Gandharvas. So we are going down. Brahmaji, Devatas, Gandharvas, Kinnaras, then there are Asuras and Rakshasas, then there are Pretas and Bhutas, then human beings. And then we have the cows, the horses and the beast, and then we have the bird. And below the birds, we have insects, worms, moths, immobile creatures, fishes. So like that, there are different species. So this inverted tree, the roots are considered the highest or the higher, and then as we go down in the reflection, the branches and all, it is considered lower. So this is Krishna's example of an inverted tree of this material world.
And as Srila Prabhupada writes there in the purport, that for the tree, the word uses Ashwatam. So Prabhupada says there that Ashwatam refers to something which will not be there tomorrow, which is not there. So this material, this tree of a reflection of the spiritual world, which is like the material world, which is representing the material world. So this tree will not be there tomorrow. For whom will it not be there? For devotees, it will not be there, because devotees will go to the spiritual world. It will not be there for the non-devotees also. Why it will not be there for the non-devotees? Because this tree represents so many desires what they have, which they are having today, but they may not have it tomorrow because it may change. So Prabhupada says that this whole tree is Ashwatam, or will not be there tomorrow, both for devotees as well as for non-devotees, because that is the nature of this tree. It is temporary. So one can be free from entanglement within material world by cultivating a transcendental desire to enter into spiritual world. So if we cultivate that desire, if we start working towards that, then we can actually escape this whole tree, which in fact is not real, which is actually a reflection. So if we want to enjoy, why are we enjoying in the reflection? Like if we see a reflection of a tree, now can we actually eat some fruits and smell some flowers, plucking it out, if we see just the reflection?
We're on the bank of a lake and we see a beautiful mango tree, and
Yeah.
we say, wow, I'm hungry, so let's go and pluck the mangoes from the reflection in the water. And then we just move around, and then nothing really come in hand. So similarly, our bodies are made up of matter, and every object in this material world is made up of matter, and whatever we actually consume is just matter interacting with matter. The modes are interacting with modes, and there is nothing else which is actually in this material world.
Adhashchodvam prasritastasya shakha guna pravriddha vishaya pravala adhascha mulani anusantatani karmanubandhini manushya loke. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society.
So here we have the branches of this tree extending downwards. So downwards refers to the animals and other species. Upwards refers to the birth, one taking birth as devatas or elevated beings. And the branches, they increase and increase and increase. Why? Because we are watering them by our actions. So we act in sattva gun, rajogun, tamogun. It will produce the reactions, the fruit in sattva gun, rajogun, tamogun. We keep acting, we keep producing fruit, We keep acting, keep producing, keep acting, keep producing, and therefore the branches increase, 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 and increase and increasing. So that is what is the nature of this tree. Yes. So this material world is a tree which is nourished by the three modes and the fruitive acts. Because we may think, why does it exist in this first place? Well, we are the reason, we are the cause, because we want material, we have material desires, we want to act on those desires, and therefore this tree will continue. So branches spreading up and down, it refers to the species or planets which are different, the higher species or the lower species, higher planets or the lower planets. Watering process, as we saw, the actions in the three modes. The twigs are the sense objects, which we discussed in one of the previous sessions, that how each sense has a sense object that we try to perceive it with. And then the secondary roots extending all over. So that's the fruitive action. So there are different species manifesting according to the proportion of roots.
So this is about the tree. So again, don't get confused. It is very simple. It is a metaphor which Krishna is giving to explain this entire material world where we are living, how temporary it is, and how we want to fulfill our desire. And the more we want to fulfill the desire, the more we become attracted to this thing which is not real. Real thing is somewhere else. We are just seeing the reflection and we really want to enjoy it. So how do I get out of it? What do I do with this tree? So that Krishna is talking in verse number 3 and 4. Narupam asyeha tathopalabhyate nanto nachadir nacha sampratishtha ashvatthamenam suvirudhamulam asangashastrena dridhena chitva tatah padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuya tam eva chadyam purusham prapadye yatah pravritti prashrita purani.
The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So after Krishna has explained this material world like an inverted tree, so Krishna is explaining that, ordinary people cannot understand where it starts, where it ends, where the foundation is. So they cannot really understand. They are just busy moving from one branch to another branch, performing. If they perform pious activities, they go up. If they perform impious activities, they go down. So like this, nobody can actually perceive the real form of this tree. And then Krishna says, don't waste time in that. What one should do? With determination, one should cut this strongly rooted tree. And what is that axe, or what is that saw with which we have to cut this tree? That axe or weapon is of detachment. With determination, we must cut this tree with the weapon of detachment. Detachment from this material world, detachment from the needs and from the pullings of this material body. We must detach. And then detachment is not enough, because detachment alone is very, very difficult. So Krishna says, and thereafter one must seek that place which, having gone, one never returns. So Krishna is saying, set your goal, set spiritual goal, moving out of this material world, and there surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna has actually given us a whole plan for a living entity in this material world. He has given a whole plan. Surrender to the Supreme Lord, go to a place from which one has to do, one never returns, And of course, because we are caught up in this tree, we have to cut this tree so that we are free from this tree, and then we can actually go back to the spiritual world.
So the tree, is it real or illusion? So first we know that we may ask that, is this tree real? So Krishna is saying, no, it's a reflection of the real tree. So don't try to enjoy the fruits, because you will not be able to enjoy, because it is not real. So this place is full of janma, mrityu, jara, dukkha, miseries arising from birth, death and old age. So you cannot enjoy. So don't try enjoying. So if you are looking in the reflection in a glass and you want to achieve something through that reflection, I mean, it's just a reflection. So you need a real person. So you need a real tree here. So first is that.
Actually, yeah, that's what differentiates a intelligent person from a foolish person. Intelligent person is looking for reality, the actual reality, the actual permanence. And a foolish person is happy with some temporary happiness also gets. So real intelligent person is always thinking, why my happiness is so limited, temporary, why there is so much of misery? Can I have a permanent solution to all of this and attain eternal happiness? That person is actually really intelligent. And for him, Bhagavad-gita is actually spoken.
So now the question may arise that, okay, even if it is reflection, but I'm so attached to this reflection. Right? I know, in principle, I know that I am not this body, but then I have my family members, I have my job, I have my country, I have my duties,
I have my pet,
I have my responsibilities, I have my pet, I have my possessions, I have my jewelry, I have my wealth. So I am so attached to it, though I am not the body, yet I am so attached to it. So what do? Krishna, you are saying that it is not real, but for me it feels it is real. I feel everything is real. You are saying it's not real, but I can feel, I can take my phone, I can enjoy it. I take my computer, I enjoy there. I travel to different places, I enjoy, and you are saying it's not real. So what do? So Krishna is saying, with determination, use detachment. This is how we cut that tree, because unless that tree is cut off from your life, you will be attached to it. So be determined, don't give up. Dharyat, lot of determination. And what do you do with that? Cut it. So use this weapon of detachment. So become little detached from your body itself. Forget about others. Become detached from your body and mind and modes. And then you can, what happens after that detachment? Become attached to me. So Krishna says, detach from everything else and become attached to me, and then you will come to me. Then we will go to that place reaching where everything is real. So everything, the trees, the plants, the animals, the everything there is real. That is spiritual world, that is Golok Vrindavan. So that is where Krishna is inviting us. But to reach there, we have to detach ourselves from this reflection of the tree and become attached to that supreme person.
Yeah, like a child who's attached to a play, a game or something, and the child is holding onto that, and the parent is pulling from the back, and child says, no, I don't want to give it, I don't want to give it up. So that is the kind of situation we're in. So we have to leave it. In fact, cut it with the weapon of detachment, and then we have to move onwards.
And then, how do we surrender? How do we become attached? How do we move onward? That we will discuss in the next session. Hopefully, you will get enough time this week to read from verse number 5 to 12 and do the quiz of chapter number 14. And in next session, we will catch up with verse number 5 onwards. So, the reading assignment is chapter 15, verse number 5 to 12. So, thank you all very much. Taking your leave. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Rama